Today on MH News, we're sharing with you our top 5 tips for profitable audio. Welcome to MH News, everybody. I'm your host, Matt Haslam. Right now, we're doing a 5-part series on our top 5 tips for 5 different careers in entertainment, including audio engineers, which is what today's episode is all about. 2 weeks ago, we did a filmmaker special, which you can click right here for, and last week we did a lighting special, which you can click right here for. Next week we'll be talking all about musicians, and finally a mystery week. So don't forget to submit your ideas for what topic those 5 tips should be on. Catch more info on how to submit at the end of today's episode. But today we're talking all about audio, so let's get started. Audio is many times the biggest worry for live event engineers, and as we've explained last week in our episode on lighting, and on many other episodes here on MH News, the auditory aspect to a live event is nowhere near as weighted in the audience's mind compared to the visual. But that doesn't mean the audio is not important at all. All this means is that many live events don't have any lighting aspect to their event and then are confused as to why their audience leaves halfway through the show. Certainly, when your loved ones are graduating with a bachelor's degree from a major university, you would hate for the commencement speaker to be talking and not hear anything he says. So audio is important, definitely, but your audience doesn't care about not hearing someone if they can't first see them. Again, this is completely different for filmmakers. This is only for events and live events. Unfortunately, many live event engineers put all their investment into audio and forget about lighting. So today we're sharing with you our top 5 tips so you can invest wisely and you have enough money to use for lighting and other aspects. Our main goal is to enable you to have the industry standard gear and knowledge so you can charge more for your professional event services and hopefully maximize profits. Our number 5 tip is to only work with industry standard gear. In other words, if you have, or even if you are thinking about getting anything by Natty Audio, Behringer, Radio Shack, Fender Audio, or many others, please throw it in the trash or donate it to Salvation Army. This type of gear makes for great firewood to put into a barrel underneath a bridge to keep the homeless warm. No offense to the homeless. And I hope this description helps you understand just how horrible these brands are when it comes to pro audio. I made this mistake back when I was just starting out as a 10-year-old because I saw it as a cheap replacement to a more expensive piece of gear, and let's just say that to this day it's my biggest regret besides not moving to Nashville at 9 years old. But seriously, I have seen hundreds of bands, performers, and even companies who have chosen not to worry about lighting and concentrate their efforts on audio and then epically fail at audio, and it baffles my mind. Because if I were to put all my eggs into one basket, I'm going to make sure that basket doesn't suck, wouldn't you think? But if you don't know the industry standard gear, don't just ask a friend who's a sound guy. Please go to a reputable music store or call sweetwater.com or B&H Photo Video, and even though they sound like a photography store, which they are, they have plenty of great industry standard live audio gear as well. And just ask them about getting some industry standard microphones such as the SM58, XLR cables, Stage Snakes, typically something by OSP, mixer, which typically is by Mackie or Allen & Health. Other mixers just aren't as great. Speakers, typically something by JB&L, and power amps, typically something by Crown or QSC. And they'll help you out. And if you're just starting out, I know it's overwhelming, but you have to spend money to make money, and getting industry standard gear allows you to charge industry standard prices too, so keep that in mind. Number 4 on our list is to get some experience working with professionals, or even just professional gear before going out and buying tens of thousands worth of it. Many people just assume because they have enough money that they can buy their professional title in this industry by just buying the gear. And truth is, that's exactly what sound guys do, and sometimes sound guys don't even buy the gear. They just use their old stereo system they found in their basement and think fiddling around with buttons is how it's done, and yet there's a skill to it, which means you have to know what each button does, how and when to use it. And just to put this into some context for you, back when I was in grade school, I started working with the school sound system, which wasn't industry standard by any means, and the school was advised by a local DJ to buy $800 Fender system, which even the 7th grader that I was knew that that was a piece of junk, and they've since asked me to help them replace it with something professional. Just goes to show you how much wiser of a purchase you'll make when you ask a professional audio engineer and not a sound guy or DJ for advice. But throughout high school and throughout my beginning years in this career, I've allowed myself the time to work with some gear from my grade school, high school, drama club, and so on had in their inventory. This meant by the time I was a sophomore in high school, I was professional enough to get hired by my high school for their events running lights and sound. And nowadays, I'm proud that every school I've attended from grade school to college has hired me back at least 2 times and counting. So while this time is an investment into your experience, it's also an investment hoping that you'll get hired for real money. Please understand this does not mean by any means to just donate your time to anyone just to get experience or exposure. Only allow yourself to donate your time in return for experience if you are a student working at your school on a school project, such as a drama club spring play. Once you become professional though, you should even be charging for that. We'll talk more about that in a future episode, but if someone comes to you asking for your assistance with their event, money has to be on the table and no donations should be given, especially to charities. Furthermore, I didn't buy any audio console, a mic, or anything until I worked with it hands-on first. So if you're out of school, I encourage you to rent the piece of gear and work with it a little bit hands-on to see if it's right for you, especially a mixing console. I think I worked with a Mackie Onx 24.4 for about a year before buying my own, because a mixing console is your workstation, so you want to make sure it fits your wants and needs well before spending well over $2,000 on one. Coming in at number 3 is to be organized. This means you want to map out your audio design long before your event. Make sure you have enough cables, mics, and speakers, and so on. You want to plan your audio so that if a guitarist is on stage right, you want to pan the guitar's incoming audio to your speakers on stage right, a little more than to the stage left. That way your audience is hearing the audio coming from the same side as it should be coming from. This means it sounds more live and as if your audio system wasn't there at all, which, believe it or not, is exactly what you want. You want to also keep all of your cables organized and possibly labeled, especially if you are on tour with this event, since you'll have the same exact setup many times, so it just makes life simpler. But it also allows you to remain calm if something goes wrong during your event, because the last thing you want to do is look stressed. If you are stressed, the performers are going to see that and get stressed, and then everyone is stressed, so your event will be ruined. Being in the front of house and being the head audio engineer is the key role in any live event. Everyone relies on you for stability. May seem kind of funny, but it's very true. Now before we get to number 2, let's just say that I've seen this hundreds of times in my career, and I've never once seen that it works. For instance, there are local sound guys who put the audio console, lighting console, and so on, which we just call the front of house, on either stage right or stage left. There's even a local venue close to me who chose to put all their controls for their $10,000 system behind the stage because they didn't want the audience to see the workers. Let's just pause for a moment to say there is no possible worse position you can put a control board besides behind the stage, because the audio and lighting engineers need to see and hear what they are doing from the audience's perspective. Now let's suppose for a second you were trying to build a higher class venue. You could put your control booth in a completely separate room with not even a window between your control booth and the event area. So in theory you could hide all of your controls and workers, but that requires tons more cable. It requires microphones throughout the audience, hidden in the ceiling, hooked up to speakers in the control booth, and cameras placed in many different locations in the audience area, hooked up to the monitors in a control booth. And before you know it, you're spending around $50,000 on just trying to hide a couple cables and to hide your engineers, who, by the way, are going to be dressed in all black in a pitch black room standing behind your audience, all of which are watching the show in front of them. But if that's worth $50,000 to you, then please give me a call to help you install it. But certainly don't put it behind your stage. Other events put their controls off to the side because many A-list artist shows, they have the control board on either stage left or stage right, And yes, there is typically a mixer there, but that only controls sound for the monitors on stage. The sound coming out of the speakers for the audience is still controlled by the front of house area position in the audience. So position your front of house as far back as you can push it, directly in line with your stage. This way you can do a much better job and you can be more professional. And finally, our number one tip for profitable audio is to network with other audio professionals. While you want to look at competition as competition, it is also important to remember that no audio engineer knows everything, and you never will. The main key in being a professional isn't what you know, it's knowing what you don't know. Let me just repeat that. The main key in being a professional is not what you know, it's knowing what you don't know. That way, if you need to do it, you can call someone to help you rather than trying to do it yourself for a major client and messing up and being in a very bad position. So networking not only allows you to learn from others and teach others what you know, it also allows you to share so that someday if someone else needs something and they don't know it as well as you, they have your number to call you in. But keep in mind, this also means when you don't know something as well as they do, you have to call them in. You can't just take and take without any give every once in a while. So go out there and network. If you have any tips or tricks you'd like to share, or if you'd like to mention a piece of industry standard gear that you suggest buying, please comment below on Facebook or YouTube. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Right now we're doing a 5-part segment on our tips for profitable filmmaking, lighting, audio, music, and finally a mystery week. So don't forget to submit your ideas for what that mystery week should be and your questions for an upcoming Q&A episode to info@matthaslam.com or private message us on Facebook. Thanks for watching, and see us back here every Sunday and Thursday starting in February for brand new episodes.